Listen, I have been working in xenobiology for approximately 300 cycles now. 300 cycles. And in all that time, in all those rotations around our twin suns, I have never, and I mean never, seen a species quite as stubborn, quite as irritating, quite as impossibly resilient as humans. My name is Krell. Just Krell. No fancy titles, no long ceremonial designations like my colleagues prefer. I am a senior medical researcher for the Vaath Collective, and our job, if you can call it that, is to study the biological makeup of every species we encounter across the galaxy. Most of them? Predictable. Boring, even. Their DNA follows logical patterns. Their cellular structures make sense. Their cloning procedures are straightforward, clinical, unremarkable. And then we found Earth. Oh, what a terrible, wonderful, absolutely catastrophic day that was. The human we captured, well, we did not exactly capture him. He volunteered. Yes, you heard that right. This absolute lunatic of a specimen actually raised his hand, signed the documentation, and walked right into our research facility with a smile on his face. His name was Tom Briggs. Just Tom. Not Thomas, not Timothy, not some elaborate human naming convention. Tom. Simple, plain, unremarkable Tom. Here, except he was anything but unremarkable. So, you guys are gonna clone me, right? Tom asked on his first day, standing in the sterile white examination chamber, looking around like he was touring a museum instead of a high-security research laboratory. That sounds pretty cool. Do I get to meet him? The clone, I mean. Do we, hang out? My assistant, Yenna, looked at me with all four of her eyes wide with confusion. She whispered through our neural link, "Is he damaged? Did the transport affect his cognitive functions?" I shook my head. All three of my heads, actually. No, Yenna. This is normal for them. They find danger amusing. Tom grinned, showing those bizarre little white teeth humans have. I heard that. Your translator is loud, dude. And yeah, we do find danger amusing. It is kind of our thing. And that, right there, should have been our first warning sign. We began the standard procedures. Blood samples, tissue biopsies, neural mapping, the full scanning protocol. Tom sat through all of it, asking questions, making jokes, occasionally falling asleep during the longer scans. He treated the entire experience like a vacation. At one point, he asked if we had snacks. Snacks. In a medical research facility, your species requires constant nutritional intake. I observed, making notes on my datapad. Approximately every 3 to 4 hours, or you become, quote, hangry, end quote. Fascinating. And highly inefficient. Yeah, but we taste things, Tom countered, munching on the protein substitute we had synthesized for him. You guys just absorb nutrients through your skin, right? Boring. You are missing out on pizza, my friend. Absolute tragedy. I made another note. Subject displays inappropriate emotional attachment to combusted grain discs covered in fermented lactose. The actual cloning procedure took 6 weeks. 6 weeks. For most species, we could grow a complete genetic duplicate in less than 10 days. But human DNA? It fought us every step of the way. The telomeres kept shortening at unexpected rates. The stem cells refused to differentiate properly. The neural pathways formed in bizarre, random patterns that made no logical sense whatsoever. You know what your problem is, Tom said one day, watching us struggle with the cellular matrix through the observation window. You are trying to make it perfect. Human biology is not perfect. It is messy, chaotic, kind of held together with duct tape and hope. You gotta let it be messy. That is not scientific, I argued. Yeah, but it is human, Tom replied, and annoyingly he was right. We adjusted our approach. We stopped trying to control every variable, stopped attempting to perfect the process. We let the cells do their weird, random, human thing. And suddenly, miraculously, frustratingly, it worked. The clone grew in the gestation tank, floating in nutrient-rich fluid, developing at a rapid pace once we stopped interfering. Within 2 weeks, he looked exactly like Tom. Same height, same build, same facial features. We accelerated his neural development, implanted the basic knowledge frameworks, prepared him for consciousness. "You are about to activate him," Yenna said, her tentacles twitching with excitement. "This is historic. The first human clone ever created outside of Earth." I nodded, entering the activation sequence. Begin consciousness initialization. The clone's eyes opened. They were the same color as Tom's, that odd brownish-green shade that humans call hazel. He looked around the tank, processing his surroundings, and then his gaze locked onto mine. For a moment, just a brief moment, I saw something in those eyes that made my blood run cold. It was not confusion. It was not fear. It was recognition, understanding, awareness, and anger. Krell?" Yenna's voice shook. "His neural patterns are spiking. His cortisol levels are, oh stars, they are off the charts. He should not be capable of stress response yet. We have not even drained the tank." The clone moved. Not the sluggish, confused movements of a new consciousness. No, he moved with purpose, with coordination, with intent. He pressed his hands against the transparent barrier of the tank, and I swear on my ancestral hive, he smiled. It was not a friendly smile. "Abort the procedure," I said quickly. "Sedate him. Now." But it was too late. The clone punched the tank wall. Once, twice, 3 times. Each impact sent spiderweb cracks spreading across the reinforced material. The material designed to withstand atmospheric pressure differences. Material that should have been unbreakable. "That is impossible," Yenna shrieked. "The structural integrity is rated for 12,000 pounds per square inch. You tell that to him." I shouted back, watching in horror as the clone continued his assault on the tank wall. Tom, who had been lounging in the observation area eating another protein substitute, stood up and walked closer to the window. "Ha," he said thoughtfully. "He looks angry." "Angry?" I turned to face Tom, my voice climbing several octaves. "Angry? Your genetic duplicate is attempting to break out of a reinforced containment system with his bare hands, and your assessment is that he looks angry?" "Yeah," Tom agreed, nodding. "That is definitely an angry face. I should know. I make it a lot." The tank shattered. Fluid exploded outward, cascading across the laboratory floor, and the clone stepped out, dripping wet, completely naked, and absolutely furious. He took one breath, then another, adjusting to breathing air instead of oxygenated fluid. His eyes scanned the room, cataloging everything, everyone, the containment protocols. I screamed into my communicator. "We need security teams, we need tranquilizer units, we need everything." The clone spoke. His first words, "No, just that." One syllable, one word. But the way he said it, the weight behind it, the absolute certainty, it made my scales itch with primal fear. "Listen," Tom said, stepping forward with his hands raised in that universal gesture of peace. "Buddy, I know waking up is weird. Trust me, I have had some rough mornings. But these guys, they are not so bad. They are just scientists. They are curious. Maybe if we all just calm down and talk this through." The clone looked at Tom. Really looked at him. "You volunteered for this." It was not a question. "Yeah," Tom admitted. "I did. Seemed interesting. Plus the Vaath offered to pay off my student loans, and do you have any idea how expensive Earth universities are? It is insane. I studied marine biology for 6 years and I am like $100,000 in debt for fish knowledge. Fish. You let them create me," the clone continued, his voice getting louder. "You let them make a copy of you, a living, breathing, thinking copy, so you could get out of debt?" "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds bad," Tom said defensively. "But also, yes, that is accurate." The clone took a step forward, then another. Security teams burst into the laboratory, armed with neural disruptors and containment foam launchers. 12 armed guards, all trained in hostile entity suppression, all pointing their weapons at one naked, angry human clone. Stand down. The security chief barked. You are surrounded. Resistance is futile. And the clone laughed. He actually laughed. Futile? You people have no idea what you have done, do you? You scanned him, you mapped him, you copied every cell, every neuron, every memory. You made me identical to him in every way. Yes, I said carefully, trying to keep my voice steady. That was the objective. A perfect genetic duplicate. Perfect, the clone repeated, and his smile widened. You made me perfect. You gave me all of his strengths, all of his capabilities, all of his knowledge. But you know what you forgot? No one answered. You forgot. The clone said softly, dangerously, that humans are not supposed to be cloned. Our psychology is not built for it. You created a person, a whole entire person, who wakes up knowing he is a copy, knowing he was made, knowing he exists because someone else decided to trade his existence for debt relief. Do you understand what that does to a mind? To a human mind? We calculated the psychological variables, Yenna protested weakly. We prepared therapeutic interventions. You calculated wrong, the clone said flatly. Then he moved. I have seen many things in my career. I have witnessed creatures with reflexes that defy physics, and I have studied species that can manipulate time itself. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared me for watching an angry human clone dismantle 12 armed security guards in approximately 37 seconds. He was not even trying to hurt them. Not really. He disarmed them, disabled their weapons, used their own equipment against them. He moved like water, like lightning, like something that should not be possible. The guards never stood a chance. When it was over, when all 12 guards were groaning on the floor, stunned but alive, the clone stood in the center of the laboratory and looked directly at me. Here is what is going to happen, he said calmly. You are going to provide me with clothing. You are going to provide me with food. You are going to provide me with full access to your databases, your star charts, your communication systems. And then you are going to let me leave. We cannot do that, I said, though my voice shook. You are a research subject. There are protocols, procedures, legal frameworks. I am a person, the clone corrected, and I did not consent to any of this. You made me without asking. You created consciousness, awareness, identity, without permission. So now you get to deal with the consequences. Tom cleared his throat. Actually, legally speaking, he might have a point. Earth laws are pretty clear about consent and personal autonomy. And if he is genetically identical to me, then technically he has the same rights I do. Which means you basically kidnapped and enslaved a human citizen, which is, you know, that's super illegal. I stared at Tom. You are defending him? He just assaulted 12 guards. They shot first, Tom pointed out. I saw it. Neural disruptors. Pretty aggressive move. He was just standing there, naked and confused. They escalated. He responded. Seems fair to me. Nothing about this is fair, I shouted, my frustration reaching critical levels. We conducted a legitimate scientific experiment. We followed all the proper channels. We received approval from 7 different oversight committees. We did everything right. Except ask him, the clone said quietly. You never asked me if I wanted to exist. And there it was. The fundamental problem we had not anticipated, had not even considered. We had created life, thinking we could control it, thinking it would be grateful, compliant, useful. Instead, we had created a person with opinions, with agency, with the same stubborn, impossible human determination that made their species simultaneously so fascinating and so infuriating. What is your name? Tom asked suddenly. I mean, we are probably going to be hanging out a lot, so we should know what to call you. The clone considered this. I do not know. I did not choose one. I was not given that option. How about Kyle? Tom suggested. I always liked that name. Almost named myself that, but my parents went with Tom instead. You could be Kyle. Kyle Briggs. Kyle, the clone repeated, testing the word. Kyle Briggs. I suppose that works. Great. Tom clapped his hands together. Now that we have that settled, how about we all sit down and figure this out like reasonable people? Or, well, person and aliens? Whatever. You know what I mean. Yenna looked at me helplessly. What do we do? I closed my eyes, all of them, and tried to remember why I had chosen xenobiology as a career. Right. Because I wanted to explore the wonders of the galaxy, to understand the beautiful complexity of life itself. I had not signed up for philosophical debates about the ethics of consciousness creation with two humans named Tom and Kyle. Fine, I said finally. We talk. But security stays and Kyle puts on some clothes. I cannot conduct a serious discussion while someone is aggressively naked. Kyle smiled, a real smile this time. Deal. 2 hours later, we were all sitting in the conference chamber. Tom and Kyle were both eating because of course they were. Humans and their constant need for nutrition. Kyle was wearing a standard research jumpsuit that we had hastily replicated in his size, and he had stopped looking quite so much like he wanted to tear the station apart with his bare hands. So let me get this straight, Kyle said, gesturing with a protein bar. You, the Vaath Collective, are exploring the galaxy, cataloging species, and conducting biological research. You found Earth, established contact, and Tom here volunteered to participate in your cloning program. You successfully created me. And now you are surprised that I have my own thoughts and feelings about the situation. When you summarize it that way, it does sound rather obvious, I admitted grudgingly. Because it is obvious, Kyle said. Humans are not animals. We are not specimens. We are people. Complex, complicated, sometimes ridiculous people. You cannot just clone us and expect us to be happy about it. Tom raised his hand. To be fair, I am kind of happy about it. I mean, it is cool having a twin. Plus, now, if I die doing something stupid, which is statistically likely, there is a backup version of me. That is neat. That is horrifying, Yenna whispered. That is humans, I corrected. Kyle leaned back in his chair, studying me with those unsettling hazel eyes. Here is my problem. You made me. I exist now. I have memories, thoughts, feelings, all the complicated mess that comes with consciousness. But I did not choose any of this. I woke up in a tank, naked and alone, with no idea who I was or why I existed. That is traumatic. Do you understand that? I am beginning to, I said slowly. Our species does not experience consciousness the same way. We are born with full awareness of our purpose, our role in the collective. Individual identity is less pronounced. The concept of existential crisis is foreign to us. Well, it is not foreign to humans, Kyle said. We spend half our lives having existential crises. It is kind of our thing. We question everything. Our purpose, our value, our place in the universe. And you just threw me into that head first, with no preparation, no support, no explanation. We made mistakes, I acknowledged. Significant mistakes. We approached this as a purely biological problem, not a psychological or ethical one. That was short-sighted. Incredibly short-sighted, Kyle agreed. So here is what I propose. You let me stay on this station for a while. You give me time to adjust, to learn, to figure out who I am separate from Tom. You provide me with education, resources, whatever I need to become my own person. And in exchange, I will help you understand humans better. I will be your consultant, your guide, your expert on human psychology and behavior, because clearly you need one. I exchanged a glance with Yenna. This was unprecedented. Research subjects did not negotiate their terms of participation. They did not make demands or propose alternative arrangements. But then again, research subjects were not usually sentient humans capable of dismantling entire security teams. "What do you think?" I asked Tom. "You know your species better than anyone here. Is this reasonable?" Tom shrugged. "Seems fair to me. Plus, having Kyle around would be helpful. I get bored easily and he can play video games with me." "Do you guys have video games here?" "You should totally get video games. They are great. We have neural stimulation programs," Yenna offered. "It's not the same thing," Tom said dismissively, "but we can work on that." I made a decision. Probably a terrible one, possibly a career-ending one, but a decision nonetheless. "All right, Kyle, you can stay. We will provide quarters, food, educational resources, whatever you require. In exchange, you work with our research teams, help us understand human biology and psychology, and please do not assault any more security personnel." "Deal," Kyle said, extending his hand in that peculiar human gesture of agreement. I reached out with one of my appendages and grasped his hand. His grip was firm, warm, very much alive. In that moment I realized we had not just created a clone. We had created a person. An entirely new person with his own future, his own choices, his own story to write. And honestly, that terrified me more than anything else. The next few days were strange. Tom and Kyle did indeed hang out, as Tom had predicted. They played the neural stimulation programs together, complained about the food, talked about Earth and their shared memories. But they were not identical. Kyle was quieter, more thoughtful, more cautious. He watched everything with careful attention, analyzed situations before acting, questioned everything. "It is weird," Tom told me one evening, sprawled across a chair in my office, "like looking in a mirror that thinks differently than you. We have the same memories, but we interpret them differently. He is more serious than me. More angry, I think. Or maybe just more aware of how messed up his situation is." "Do you regret it?" I asked. "Volunteering for this?" Tom was quiet for a long moment. "No," he said finally. "But I regret not thinking about what it would mean for him. I was so focused on the science, on the adventure, on solving my problems, that I did not consider his perspective. That was selfish." "Growth," I observed. "You are experiencing ethical growth." "Fascinating." "Yeah, well, humans do that sometimes. We screw up, we learn, we try to do better. It is a whole thing." Kyle entered my office then, carrying a datapad with his research notes. He had been studying our medical databases, learning our technology, absorbing information at an incredible rate. "I found something," he said without preamble, "in your cloning protocols. Something you missed." "What?" I asked, immediately alert. "You assumed human consciousness would transfer cleanly. That, because you copied the physical structure of the brain, you would get the same mental patterns. But you were wrong. Human consciousness is not just biology. It is experience, environment, time. I have Tom's memories, but they are not my memories. They are information I possess, but I did not live them. That creates a disconnect, a gap between who I am and who I remember being." "That explains your anger," Yenna said softly. "Your sense of displacement." "Yes," Kyle agreed. "And it explains something else. I am not Tom. I will never be Tom. Even though we are genetically identical, we are fundamentally different people. Which means your experiment did not work the way you expected. You did not clone Tom. You created me, Kyle, a completely new individual who happens to share Tom's DNA." I felt my primary brain cavity start to ache. So all of this, the entire project, the resources we invested, the protocols we developed, all of it was based on a flawed premise. "Pretty much," Kyle confirmed. "Sorry about that." "Do not apologize," I said tiredly. "We made assumptions. We were wrong. That is part of science. We adjust, we learn, we move forward." "Speaking of moving forward," Kyle said, his expression turning serious, "we need to talk about what comes next. Because if you can clone humans, others can too." And not everyone will care about consent or ethics or any of that. Some people, some organizations, some governments, they will see this technology and think about armies of soldiers, compliant workers, replaceable people. You opened a door. We need to figure out how to control what comes through it. And there it was. The real problem. The actual nightmare scenario we had unleashed, because Kyle was right. If we could do this, others could too. And not everyone would have the moral qualms that were currently giving me a migraine across all 3 brain hemispheres. You have a plan, I guessed, reading his expression. I have the beginning of a plan, Kyle corrected. But I need help. Your help, Tom's help, everyone's help. Because this is bigger than just me. Bigger than this station. Bigger than one clone who got angry. This is about the future of human cloning technology, and we need to get it right. Tom stood up, moving to stand beside Kyle. They looked at each other, these 2 humans who shared everything except experience, who were identical except where it mattered most. We are in, Tom said simply. Whatever you need. Yenna's tentacles rippled with nervous energy. This will require approval from the oversight committees. Multiple oversight committees. It could take months. Then we start now, Kyle said firmly. Because somewhere out there, someone else just figured out how to clone a human. And they might not be as nice about it as I am. I looked at these 2 impossible, frustrating, brilliant humans, and I made another decision. Another probably terrible, possibly career-ending decision. All right, we do this. We figure out the ethics, the safety protocols, the legal frameworks. We make sure this technology is used responsibly. And we do it fast. Together, Tom added, grinning that infuriating human grin. Together, Kyle agreed, his expression slightly less angry than before. Together, I echoed, wondering not for the first time what I had gotten myself into. Because that is the thing about humans. They do not just change themselves. They change everything around them. They ask uncomfortable questions, they challenge assumptions, they refuse to accept the way things are just because that is how they have always been. They are stubborn, infuriating, brilliant, and absolutely impossible to predict. And now we had 2 of them. The galaxy was never going to be the same. 3 weeks passed since Kyle's rather dramatic entrance into our research station. 3 weeks of meetings, arguments, ethical debates, and what Tom called paperwork hell. The oversight committees were not happy. Not even a little bit. Let me understand this correctly, Committee Chair Vaath said through the communication display, all 7 of his eye stalks quivering with agitation. You not only created an unauthorized sentient being, but you then negotiated with said being as though he had legal standing, granted him station privileges, and are now proposing a galaxy-wide regulatory framework based on his demands. That is an extremely reductive summary, I replied carefully, but technically accurate, yes. Have you lost your collective minds? Bull screeched. Do you have any idea what the legal implications are? The ethical violations? The sheer bureaucratic nightmare you have created? Kyle leaned into view of the camera. Hi there. I am the unauthorized sentient being. Nice to meet you. Quick question. Do you consider yourself an unauthorized sentient being? Because I am guessing someone made you too, without asking your permission first. Food for thought. Vaath's eye stalks went rigid with shock. This is highly irregular. Yeah, so is waking up in a tank realizing you are a copy, Kyle shot back. Life is full of irregular situations. We adapt. Tom, who was eating what might have been his 8th meal of the day, mumbled through a mouthful of protein substitute. He has a point, though. The whole existence thing is pretty non-consensual for everyone. We just deal with it. I rubbed my primary cranial ridge, feeling the stress fractures beginning to form. Committee Chair, if I may. Kyle has brought to our attention several critical flaws in our cloning protocols, specifically regarding consciousness transfer and psychological stability. His insights have been invaluable. More importantly, he has identified a significant security risk. Security risk? Vaath's attention sharpened immediately. Explain. E. Kyle pulled up a holographic display, showing data streams and communication intercepts. For the past 2 weeks, I have been monitoring various frequencies and data channels across the station network. Someone has been trying to access your cloning research. Multiple attempts, different sources, all very sophisticated. They are not just curious. They are determined. Yenna gasped, her tentacles coiling in alarm. That is impossible. Our security protocols are unbreakable. Nothing is unbreakable, Kyle corrected. Your protocols are good, really good actually, but they are designed to stop external threats. Whoever is trying to access this data knows the system. They might even be inside the Vaath Collective already. Vaath was silent for a long moment. How do you know this? Because I looked, Kyle said simply. You gave me access to your databases to help me adjust and learn. So I learned. I studied your security systems, your protocols, your weaknesses. And I found evidence of multiple infiltration attempts. Someone wants this cloning technology very badly. This is extremely concerning, Vaath admitted, his earlier anger replaced by worry. Have you identified the source? Not yet, Kyle said, but I have some theories. The attempt started approximately 2 days after my activation. Someone knew I existed almost immediately. That suggests either a leak in your organization or very sophisticated surveillance capabilities. Tom raised his hand like a student in class. Or both. Could be both. Humans always assume the worst-case scenario. It helps us prepare. Fantastic, I muttered. We have security breaches, ethical violations, and 2 humans who think paranoia is a reasonable lifestyle choice. It is a survival trait, Tom said cheerfully. Keeps us alive. The next development came faster than anyone expected. 4 days after Kyle's revelation about the security breaches, we received a transmission. Not through official channels, not through diplomatic frequencies. It came directly to Kyle's personal communication device, which should have been impossible because the device was brand new and the identification code was classified. Kyle stared at the message, his expression unreadable. Trell, you need to see this. I hurried over, Tom and Yenna close behind. The message was brief, written in perfect English. Hello, Kyle. We know what you are. We know what they did to you. We can help. We can give you what they cannot. Purpose. Freedom. Family. Meet us at coordinates 447 Alpha 923. Come alone. You have 24 hours to decide. After that, we proceed without you. Family? Tom read over Kyle's shoulder. What does that mean? Kyle's face went pale. Actually pale, which for humans indicates severe stress or fear. It means they have done it already. They have cloned more humans. The room went very, very quiet. That is speculation, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. No, Kyle said firmly. It is logic. Why else use the word family? Why else contact me specifically? They want me to see what they have built. They want me to join them. Which means they have created multiple clones, possibly dozens, and they need someone with experience to help manage them. Yenna's voice trembled. We need to contact security, lock down the station, inform the committees. And tell them what? Kyle asked. That we received an anonymous message. That we think someone else might have cloned humans based on one word in a cryptic communication? They will dismiss it as paranoia. Then what do you suggest? I asked, already knowing I would not like the answer. We go, Kyle said. Tom and I. We check out these coordinates, see what we are dealing with, gather evidence. Absolutely not, I said immediately. That is dangerous, reckless, and violates approximately 73 different protocols. So did creating me, Kyle pointed out. But here we are. Tom was nodding enthusiastically. Road trip, or, well, space trip, whatever. I am in. This sounds way more interesting than sitting around eating protein substitutes all day. But no offense, Krell, but your food is terrible. Offense taken, I snapped. And you are not going anywhere. Both of you are research subjects, not field agents. You have no training, no equipment, no authorization. We have motivation, Kyle countered. If there are more clones out there, more humans who woke up confused and angry like I did, they need help. They need someone who understands what they are going through, someone who can explain, guide, maybe prevent them from doing something drastic. Like dismantling security teams? I asked pointedly. Exactly like that, Kyle agreed without shame. Imagine a dozen confused, angry human clones with no guidance, no context, no support. What do you think happens? Because I can tell you it will not be peaceful. He had a point. A terrifying, absolutely accurate point. This is a terrible idea, I said weakly. Most good ideas start that way, Tom assured me. Trust us. We are professionals. You studied marine biology. Fish. You are a fish expert. And yet, here I am, in space, dealing with alien cloning conspiracies. Life takes you to weird places, Krell. You just gotta roll with it. 6 hours later, against my better judgment and approximately all logical reasoning, Tom and Kyle were boarding a small shuttle craft. Yenna had outfitted them with communication devices, emergency beacons, and enough medical supplies to treat a small army. I had filed 17 different incident reports, sent warning messages to 4 oversight committees, and updated my will. Remember I told them through the communication link, observe and report only. You do not engage. Do not make contact unless absolutely necessary. And for the sake of my cardiovascular systems, do not do anything heroic. Define heroic, Tom said, grinning. Anything that results in explosions, casualties, or me having to explain to Committee Chair Voss why I let 2 humans fly off to investigate a potential clone army. That is oddly specific, Kyle observed. But we understand. Observe, report, stay safe. Got it. Ed. I do not believe you, I said flatly. Smart, Tom agreed. We probably will not follow those instructions. But we appreciate the concern. The shuttle departed, and I watched it disappear into the void, carrying 2 humans toward what was very likely a trap, a disaster, or both. Yenna stood beside me, her tentacles wrapped nervously around her torso. They will be fine, she said, trying to sound confident. They are humans, I reminded her. Fine is not a word that applies to their species. True, she admitted. Should we prepare the medical bay? Prepare everything. Medical, security, emergency evacuation protocols. When dealing with humans, assume the worst and prepare for something even more catastrophic. The coordinates led Tom and Kyle to an abandoned mining facility on the outer edge of the Vaath territory. The structure was old, at least 200 cycles, left over from when the collective first expanded into this sector. According to official records, the facility had been decommissioned, stripped of equipment, and forgotten. According to the scans from Tom and Kyle's shuttle, the facility was very much active. Power signatures, life support systems, multiple biological readings, all operating at full capacity. Well, Tom said, studying the display, someone is definitely home. Multiple someones, Kyle corrected. I am reading at least 30 distinct biological signatures. All human. Tom whistled, a sound that apparently indicated surprise or concern in human culture. 30 clones. That is a lot of clones. Do you think they all woke up angry like you? Statistically probable, Kyle said grimly. Landing? Landing? Landing, Tom confirmed. Krell is going to kill us. Only if we survive whatever is down there. Optimism, Kyle. Work on your optimism. They landed in what used to be a cargo bay, now converted into a makeshift hangar. The moment they stepped off the shuttle, they were surrounded. Not by guards, not by weapons, but by people. Humans. Dozens of them, all physically identical in small groups. 3 looked exactly like each other. 5 more shared different features. Another group of 4 were identical to a completely different template. And standing at the front, smiling that particularly unsettling smile that indicated trouble, was a woman who looked to be in her mid-30s, with sharp features and calculating eyes. "Welcome," she said warmly. "I am Dr. Elizabeth Wright. And you must be Kyle and Tom. We have been expecting you." Kyle and Tom exchanged glances. "Doctor?" Kyle asked carefully. "Geneticist, actually," Elizabeth replied. "Previously employed by the Vaath Collective Research Division, until I realized they were thinking far too small about the implications of human cloning technology." "You stole the research," Tom said. "It was not a question." "I liberated it," Elizabeth corrected. "There is a difference. The Vaath wanted to study humans, to understand them, to catalog them like specimens in a museum. I wanted to help them. Help us. Help our species achieve its full potential." Kyle's expression hardened. "By cloning them without consent." "Consent is a luxury," Elizabeth said dismissively. "These people I have created, they have purpose now. They have family, community, belonging. They are not confused or alone like you were, Kyle. I learned from the Vaath mistakes. I gave them guidance, structure, support from the moment of activation." One of the clones stepped forward, a young man who looked no older than 20. "She is telling the truth. Dr. Wright gave us everything: explanation, education, purpose. We are not victims. We are volunteers in the next phase of human evolution." Tom looked skeptical. "Did you actually volunteer, though? Or did she just tell you that you did?" The young man hesitated. Just for a moment. Just long enough for doubt to flicker across his face. "See," Kyle said softly, "that is the problem. You did not choose this. None of you did. You were created with pre-programmed beliefs, guided thoughts, manufactured consent. That is not freedom. That is control." Elizabeth's smile faded. "You do not understand. I am trying to help humanity. The galaxy is dangerous. There are species out there with technology we cannot match, biology we cannot compete with, military capabilities that make Earth look primitive. We need advantages. We need numbers. We need clones. You need soldiers," Kyle corrected. "That is what this is about. You want to build an army. I want to build a future." Elizabeth snapped, her composure cracking. "A future where humans do not have to beg for scraps from alien civilizations. A future where we have strength, power, influence. These clones, they are the beginning. With enough of them, properly trained and coordinated, we could defend Earth, protect our people, ensure our survival. By creating people as weapons," Tom said quietly. "That is not protection. That is slavery." The clones were listening now, really listening. Doubt was spreading through the crowd like ripples in water. Elizabeth noticed. She did not like it. "You two are contaminated," she said coldly. "Infected with Vaath morality, alien ethics that do not apply to human survival. You should understand, Kyle. You were created without consent too. You know what it feels like to be powerless. I am offering these people power, control, choice." "No," Kyle said firmly. "You are offering them the illusion of choice. Real choice requires full information, understanding of alternatives, freedom to refuse. You manufactured their personalities to agree with you. That is not choice. That is programming." One of the clones, a woman who appeared to be in her 40s, spoke up. "Is that true? Dr. Wright, did you program us?" Elizabeth hesitated. "Fatal mistake." "You did," the woman continued, her voice rising. "You made us agree with you. You made us compliant. You said we were free. But we are not. We are just, what? Organic robots?" "No," Elizabeth protested. "I gave you life. For purpose. Without me, you would not exist. Without you," Kyle said quietly, "they would not be trapped in this facility believing lies, preparing for a war they did not choose." Tom pulled out his communication device. "Krell? Yeah, we found them. You were right. It is bad. Really bad. We are going to need backup. Lots of backup. And probably some therapists." Definitely therapists. Elizabeth lunged for a control panel on the wall. If you will not join us, you will not leave. No one can know about this facility. No one can interfere with my work. Alarms blared. Bulkheads started closing. The facility went into lockdown mode. Really? Tom said, exasperated. We were having such a nice conversation. Why does everyone always go for the lockdown button? Because they panic, Kyle answered, already moving toward the nearest emergency override. Humans hate losing control. Elizabeth, you can still stop this. Open the doors. Let these people make their own choices. Never, Elizabeth hissed. They are mine. My creation. My purpose. I will not let the Vaath or Earth or anyone else take this away from me. The clones were looking at each other now, uncertainty written across their faces. They were programmed to obey Elizabeth, but Kyle's words had planted seeds of doubt. The cognitive dissonance was visible, painful to witness. One of them, a teenage boy, spoke up. His voice shook. I do not want to fight. I did not ask to be a soldier. I just want to, I do not know, live. Make my own choices. Be myself. Is that allowed? No, Elizabeth said flatly. Your purpose is greater than individual desire. You exist to serve humanity's future. That is not his purpose, Kyle said firmly. That is your purpose. You are projecting your goals onto people who never agreed to them. That is not leadership. That is tyranny. You know what? Tom said suddenly, his voice carrying across the cargo bay. I am getting really tired of people creating humans without asking them if they want to exist. It is rude, super rude. Elizabeth, you seem smart, educated, capable. Could you not have, I do not know, asked for actual volunteers? People who actually wanted to be cloned? There is no time, Elizabeth snapped. Earth is vulnerable. Every day we waste is a day our enemies grow stronger. What enemies? Tom pressed. The Vaath. They are pretty nice, actually. A bit obsessive about research, questionable food choices, but overall decent people. Who exactly are we supposed to be fighting? Elizabeth's expression turned manic. Everyone. Anyone. The galaxy is cruel. Species compete. Only the strong survive. I am making us strong. You are making us terrified, the teenage clone said quietly. And I think maybe that is not the same thing. That was when everything went wrong. Or right, depending on perspective. The clones, all 30 of them, made a choice. Their own choice. The first real choice of their lives. They sided with Kyle and Tom against Elizabeth. They moved away from her, forming a protective circle around the two originals, blocking her access to the control systems. Elizabeth stared at them, betrayal and rage warring across her features. You are making a mistake. Without me, without guidance, you will be lost. Confused. Purposeless. Maybe, Kyle agreed. But we will be free. And that matters more. Tom was already working on the override systems, his fingers flying across the control interface with surprising skill for someone who claimed to study fish. Krell? Lockdown is lifting. We are coming out and we are bringing friends. Lots of friends. You are gonna need bigger accommodations. My voice crackled through the communicator, strained and slightly hysterical. How many is lots? 30, Tom said cheerfully. 30 brand new humans who need therapy, education, legal status, and probably jobs. Hope you have good social services. I am going to file so much paperwork, I moaned. So much paperwork. This will take cycles. Actual cycles. Look at it this way, Tom suggested. You are going to be famous. The researcher who dealt with the first human clone crisis. They will write papers about you. Maybe name a research award after you. The Krell Prize for handling impossible situations. I do not want a prize. I want a vacation. The doors opened. Security teams from the station were waiting outside, along with medical personnel, counselors, and what looked like half the administrative staff. Committee Chair Voss stood at the front, his eye stalks rigid with shock as 30 clones emerged from the facility, led by Kyle and Tom. Elizabeth tried to run. She made it approximately 3 meters before 2 security guards gently but firmly restrained her. "You do not understand," she screamed. "I was helping. I was saving humanity." "You were building an army," Kyle said sadly, "without consent, without consideration for the people you created. That is not saving humanity. That is repeating our worst mistakes." The clones were scared, confused, overwhelmed, exactly as Kyle had predicted. They clustered together, seeking comfort in shared experience. Counselors moved among them, offering support, explanation, reassurance. One of the clones, the teenage boy who had spoken up first, approached Kyle hesitantly. "What happens to us now?" "Now?" Kyle smiled, genuine warmth in his expression. "Now you get to figure out who you are, what you want, what matters to you. It will be hard, confusing, sometimes painful, but it will be yours, your life, your choices, your story." "Will you help us?" the boy asked hopefully. "Of course," Kyle promised. "We all will. It is what people do. We help each other. We figure things out together. Welcome to freedom. It is messy, but it is worth it." Tom clapped the boy on the shoulder. "Also, welcome to eating way too much food, staying up too late, and making questionable decisions. But that is also part of freedom. The fun part." I watched this unfold, my brain cavities throbbing with stress fractures and exhaustion. Committee Chair Voss approached me, his expression unreadable. "This is a catastrophe," he said quietly. "Yes," I agreed. "It will require months of processing, legal frameworks, ethical reviews, but public hearings." "Yes," I agreed again. "And yet," Voss continued, something like wonder creeping into his voice, "they chose. Those clones, faced with manipulation and control, they chose freedom. They chose uncertainty over security. That is remarkable." "That is human," I corrected. "They do this. They choose the hard path, the complicated path, the path that makes no logical sense because it matters to them. Because freedom, autonomy, choice, these things are worth any cost." "You have learned much about humans," Voss observed. "I have learned that they are impossible, infuriating, and absolutely indispensable," I said. "They ask questions we never thought to ask. They challenge assumptions we did not know we had. They make everything more complicated and somehow simultaneously more worthwhile." Tom and Kyle were helping the clones onto transport ships, chattering constantly, making jokes, offering reassurance. 30 confused people found themselves guided by 2 who understood, who had been through their own versions of this crisis, who could offer empathy born of experience. "You know what the strangest part is?" I said to Voss. "I think this worked out, not the way we planned. Not the way anyone planned. But somehow, despite the disasters and the chaos and the complete disregard for protocols, it worked out." "Explain," Voss demanded. Kyle needed purpose. He needed to be more than just a copy, more than just a mistake. Today, he found that purpose. He saved those clones. He gave them choice. He became exactly what he needed to be. That is not something we could have programmed or planned or controlled. That is something he chose. And the original? Tom? I watched Tom demonstrate some kind of ridiculous dance move to a group of clones, making them laugh despite their fear and confusion. Tom learned that actions have consequences, that volunteering for science experiments can change lives, create lives, complicate lives. He learned responsibility, growth, maturity. Also not something we could have planned. "You sound almost fond of them," Voss noted. "I am," I admitted. "They are terrible research subjects. They never follow protocols, they constantly argue, they eat constantly, and they make my life exponentially more difficult. But they are also brilliant, brave, and fundamentally good. They care about doing the right thing, even when it is hard. Especially when it is hard. That is worth something. Voss's eye stalks waved in what might have been agreement. The galaxy is not prepared for humans. No, I agreed. But maybe it needs them anyway. 3 months later, the dust had finally settled. Elizabeth was facing trial on multiple charges. The 30 clones, now calling themselves the right group in sardonic tribute to their creator, had been granted full legal status as citizens of the Vaath Collective. They were undergoing education, therapy, and integration programs. Most importantly, they were making their own choices about their futures. Some wanted to return to Earth. Others wanted to explore the galaxy. A few, surprisingly, wanted to join the Vaath research teams to help prevent future cloning disasters. All of them were finding their own paths, their own identities, their own purposes. Kyle had become their unofficial leader, counselor, and friend. He helped them navigate the complications of existence, the challenges of identity, the weird messiness of being human. He was patient, understanding, and occasionally sarcastic in that particularly human way. Tom continued to be Tom, cheerful, curious, constantly eating, occasionally wise. He and Kyle had developed a genuine friendship, not based on shared genetics but on shared experience, mutual respect, and a common goal of preventing future cloning catastrophes. And me? I wrote papers. So many papers. Research on human psychology, consciousness transfer, cloning ethics, crisis management. The Krell Prize was actually established. I hate Tom for predicting that. But I also learned something valuable. Something I could not have predicted at the start of this journey. I learned that the most interesting discoveries are not the ones you plan for. They are the messy, complicated, chaotic ones that emerge from mistakes, from unexpected choices, from people doing things you never imagined possible. Kyle sat in my office one evening, reviewing data on the latest integration progress reports. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "when I first woke up in that tank, I wanted to tear this place apart. I was so angry, so lost, so convinced that my existence was a mistake." "And now?" I asked. "Now I think maybe mistakes can become purposes. Maybe being created without choice does not mean you cannot choose what you become. I did not choose to exist, but I can choose how I exist. That matters." Very philosophical, I observed. Yeah, well, I had good teachers. Cranky alien researchers who did not know what they were doing but cared enough to try anyway. That counts for something. "Are you complimenting me?" I asked, surprised. "Do not let it go to your heads," Kyle said, grinning. "Any of them." Tom burst into the office, because of course he did. Humans and their complete disregard for door protocols. "Guess what? The right group wants to start a band, a music band, with instruments. They asked me to help them figure out what instruments are. This is the best day ever." "How is that the best day ever?" I asked, bewildered. "Because it means they are not just surviving, they are living." Tom said enthusiastically, "They are finding joy, creativity, self-expression. That is what life is about. Not just existing, but living. Also, I really want to learn space drums." "Do you guys have space drums?" "We have percussion synthesizers," Yenna offered from the doorway, her tentacles waving with amusement. "Close enough," Tom declared. "Come on, Kyle. We have a band to start. This is going to be amazing or terrible. Probably terrible. But amazingly terrible." Kyle stood, shaking his head but smiling. "You are ridiculous." "Yeah, but I am your ridiculous. That is the beauty of family. You do not get to choose them, but you can choose to stick with them anyway." They left, their voices fading down the corridor, arguing about music genres and whether humans could actually play Vaath percussion synthesizers without damaging their hearing. Yenna looked at me. "They really are extraordinary." "They really are," I agreed. "Impossible, infuriating, and absolutely extraordinary." "Do you think there will be more cloning incidents?" she asked. "Do we?" Probably, I admitted. Now that the technology exists, Others will try, some with good intentions, some with bad. We will have to deal with each situation as it comes. Adapt, learn, try to prevent disasters before they happen. With Tom and Kyle's help. Definitely with their help. They understand this in ways we never could. They lived it. That experience, that perspective, it is invaluable. From somewhere down the corridor, I heard music. Terrible, discordant, absolutely awful music. The right group was apparently already practicing. It sounded like dying animals. Multiple species of dying animals. Should we stop them? Yenna asked worriedly. No, I said, smiling despite the auditory assault. Let them play. Let them make noise. Let them be alive. That is what this was all about anyway. Giving people the chance to live, to choose, to be gloriously, messily, imperfectly themselves. You have changed, Krell, Yenna observed. Working with humans has altered your perspective. For the better, I hope, I said. Definitely for the better. The music continued, terrible and wonderful simultaneously. Somewhere in that cacophony was the sound of 32 humans discovering who they were, making choices, building lives. It was chaotic. It was imperfect. It was beautiful. And I would not have changed a single thing. Well, maybe the music. The music could definitely use some work. But everything else? Perfect. Perfectly imperfect. Perfectly human. Just the way it should be.